Once again, we have stories emerging about Democrats freaking out. And this time, it's because they think the upcoming election in November is going to be a repeat of 2016. And some think it's actually going to be worse than 2016. The reason? Well, for one, Bernie Sanders is refusing to drop out. And many Democrats feel like he's dragging them down and siphoning away support they need to defeat Donald Trump. Worse still, a new poll came out from ABC News showing that Joe Biden is polling with less enthusiasm than Hillary Clinton had in 2016. So yes, they are predicting a crushing defeat. Now, it all kind of feels meaningless. I didn't know if this story was actually all that important because, to be honest, we have much more pressing matters to deal with. We're in the midst of a national crisis, a global crisis, a major economic crisis, a health crisis. Should we really be talking about campaign season? I mean, the politicians themselves aren't actually campaigning. Well, the reality is yes. You see, these people are going to be leading the charge. Whoever gets elected will likely inherit all of these problems. Now, they say the peak of this will be in a few months, and maybe by November we're mostly out of it, but there still will be repercussions from everything we've done now. The people who get elected will be leading us, so it's more important than ever to discuss what's happening. There is some good news for Democrats, however, some bad news for the far left. Ocasio-Cortez seems to be breaking away with Bernie Sanders and the activist base to become a more moderate Democrat. Not necessarily moderate, she's still progressive, but she's praising Nancy Pelosi and backing away from going after Democrats on the whole. She's actually going after conservatives now, taking a more conventional approach. Now, that could be, to a certain degree, bad news for Trump because it shows the rift between the far left and the moderates are kind of breaking down or closing. But Bernie Sanders is still in the race and is refusing to back down. Now, there is one potential contender that people keep touting, and it's Andrew Cuomo. You see, his approval rating is skyrocketing, and Democrats are saying he should be the real nominee. We should get him. We should draft him to run. Andrew Cuomo said no. Straight up, said he's happy with where he is. He doesn't want to do it. But of course, people are still trying, saying Joe Biden should tap him as VP. While this is happening, there are conversations about why Trump is winning. And the New York Times said that it's because Trump and the GOP have won the internet. But of course, there are many people who are just in denial. So let's go through these stories and take a look at what the Democrats are saying about why they fear 2016 Part 2 is coming. And I think it is. I really, really do. The first story from the Washington Post. Bernie Sanders says he's staying in the presidential race. Many Democrats fear a reprise of their 2016 defeat. Now, before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are several ways you can give, but the best thing you can do, share this video. Not that I think we can be all that successful in breaking echo chambers, but we got to try, right? Also, sharing the video just really, really helps my channel. And make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way, YouTube actually notifies you when my videos come up. Hit the like button because actually that does really, really help. Let's read. The Washington Post reports, behind the growing fear among many Democrats that Bernie Sanders' continued presence in the presidential race could spell doom in November is the belief that they've seen it happen before in the last campaign. The 2016 Democratic Convention was just about to get started when Sanders addressed his delegates. It was time to support her, he told his backers. They disagreed, booing loudly. Some stuck their thumbs down as TV cameras captured the extraordinary show of dissent, which would continue on the convention floor. To some Democrats in that campaign, it was a lesson learned the hard way about the limitations of Sanders' promise of support and the ferocity of his unbridled backers. 4 years later, with the senator from Vermont still running against Joe Biden, despite almost impossible odds of victory, some party leaders are increasingly worried about a reprise of the bitter divisions that many Democrats blame for Hillary Clinton's loss. Quote, "It was the equivalent of a World War II kamikaze pilot," said Philip Raines, a longtime advisor to Clinton. "They have no better option than to plow into USS Biden." The judgment Sanders makes about his fate and the direction taken by his supporters could be among the most consequential decisions in the race, determining whether Democrats speak with one voice against a president who is already aimed at November or squabble for months to come. Although Sanders has long pledged to do all he can to help the eventual nominee defeat President Trump, Democrats are still haunted by the last grueling battle, which didn't end after it became clear that Clinton would be the nominee, and instead stretched into the summer convention and beyond. Then, as now, an impassioned band of Sanders supporters voiced their displeasure loudly and widely, sometimes echoing the harshest attacks of Trump and his allies with little reproach from Sanders. This is why I said it's good news that AOC is backing away. If the far left and the moderate Democrats can mend that rift, then there will be, to a certain degree, a stronger coalition against Donald Trump. And the reason why this is so important, even though it does feel like there are more pressing matters, is that whoever takes charge will inherit this problem, and we have to know they can handle this problem. Will Joe Biden be able to do it? Honestly, I don't think so. So yeah, this is very, very serious. And it's not just about the president, but senators and members of the House as well. There are many re-elections happening. So you better make sure you think long and hard about who you're going to vote for, because now is the most important time to consider the abilities, the leadership skills of these individuals. Quote, I just think it's a terrible decision for him to make because he looks very selfish, said former Democratic Senator Barbara Boxer of California, who backs Biden. If Sanders is genuine about going all in to defeat Trump, then get out. Some people close to Sanders voiced confidence that the senator would stay in the race until the July convention, though they said they had received no final word on his plans. Others close to the senator have sounded less certain of that, noting only that he continues to be a candidate for the moment. So the story goes on to talk about how there's actually some people who think it's going to be way, way worse than it was. It's a relatively long story. Well, let's take a look at the hard data. Why is it that they're going to lose? You have the cultural, colloquial kind of view, perspective that Bernie Sanders drags them down. Well, the progressives would disagree. They'd say that there's no way Biden can win. He's being propped up by the establishment, and Bernie's the only one who can win. At least that's their belief. I happen to disagree. I don't think either of them can win. But take a look at this poll from ABC News, which I find it kind of sad. Strong enthusiasm for Biden among those who back him over Trump is just 24%. But I tell you what, it's worse than that. In the levels of enthusiasm among Trump supporters, 53% of Trump supporters are very enthusiastic about Trump. Among Biden supporters, I'm doing air quotes here, 26% say they are not at all enthusiastic. 24%, even less, say they're very, and 49% say they're somewhat. Joe Biden has successfully mustered that's the level of enthusiasm you're going to get. So do you think people are going to come out and vote for this guy in November? No, I think there'll be people who show up to the polls and just, check the D box on their way down. But Trump supporters are going to come out in droves to support the man that they're very enthusiastic about. So yeah, I do think we're going to see 2016 all over again. But I got to point out, I think Trump's going to landslide to an absurd degree. Now, I was skeptical when the whole crisis started, the national emergency and stuff. But now that the polls show Trump has overwhelming support from the people, they agree with what he's doing. Now I really do think Trump is absolutely going to crush it. But an interesting twist, the far left is sort of collapsing, and AOC is now lining up behind Pelosi, calling her the mama bear of the Democratic Party, which shocked a lot of progressives and leftists who aren't happy about it. The National Review says AOC drifts away from activist left toward a more conventional staff and political strategy. Now, you need to take this one seriously if you're a progressive and if you're a Trump supporter. Well, actually, everybody should pay attention to this. This is the waning of the progressive left. They are losing one of their firebrands. She's still a progressive, but she's falling in line, a more conventional approach, and she's breaking away from Bernie Sanders. This story from Huffington Post a couple weeks ago, AOC refused to campaign more for Bernie. She's lining up right behind Nancy Pelosi. We can see that. I think this person is with Chapo Trap House. Essentially, the thing with AOC susceptibility or even welcoming of bad faith concern trolling with the right language is a totally different issue, I think. They're pointing out their criticisms of AOC, that she basically just falls in line. And this has been a trademark of her campaign, actually. After she got elected, she did start drifting away from the more hard left, far left policies and perspectives and becoming a bit more mainstream. Now, not completely. She did still maintain the squad far left persona and perspective, but she did drift away, and she was slammed for it. But now when it comes to the decisions people are making, we need to consider what the Democrats have done and how this will play a role in Trump's election. It's not just about Trump doing a good job on the coronavirus. It's about whether or not the Democrats have done a bad job. And I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, they have. Donald Trump tweeted, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats delayed the workers' help/stimulus bill by over a week, trying to add real junk into the bill. Got some bad things having nothing to do with those affected by the virus included. Republicans need their votes until we win back the House in 2020. The Democrats, they jammed up this bill for a week, and everyone knows it, and they were upset about it. Worse still, the impeachment hurt Trump's response, and we all know it. The Washington Post says, let's be honest, impeachment hurt Trump's response to coronavirus. They say President Trump has been roundly criticized for allegedly failing to prepare for the coronavirus crisis before it arrived in the United States. Those critics conveniently overlook something else that could have been distracting the president's attention during that crucial period: impeachment. And yes, it did. Absolutely. You would have to be insane to deny it. Well, of course, there are many insane people denying it, but come on. Trump had to mount a defense. He needed lawyers on this. Before they actually went through with the trial, Trump was setting up a task force for the coronavirus. His response wasn't perfect, but literally everyone was downplaying the threat posed by the coronavirus. And now they're all, well, hindsight is 2020. We all get it now. But Trump shut down travel from China, and he was smeared for it. He was being impeached. He was mounting this defense. And yes, it distracted him. And this is on the Democrats. It was a BS phony impeachment, and they have to own it. The polls show Donald Trump is doing really, really well. The past 7 polls have Donald Trump in the majority for people saying they approve of his job in handling the coronavirus. He could have done better if not for the Democrats. They write, it seems forever ago, but Trump's impeachment was the major story in January and early February, the same time the disease was forcing China to lock down cities. Despite the near certainty that Republicans would not vote to convict the president, Democrats and most of the major media were almost entirely focused on impeachment. As a result, the White House was focused on addressing this threat to its survival, not on preparing for a threat from China that might never even materialize. Trump's efforts to prepare the nation for this pandemic has been far from perfect, but the one thing the president did do to stop the virus's spread to the U.S. during that period, stopping air travel from China, was heavily criticized. Even former Vice President Joe Biden criticized the president's ban as hysterical xenophobia. At the time, partisan vituperation had reached a fever pitch because of impeachment. Given that impeachment managers were regularly calling Trump a king or incipient dictator, a more forceful response against the virus in January or early February likely wouldn't have gone over well. Oh, I believe it. Absolutely. If Trump said in late January, we have to shut things down for 2 weeks to prevent this virus, they would have torn him apart. When he finally came out and said, we are going to be suspending travel from Europe, they screamed, he's inciting panic. It's bigotry. It's xenophobia. It's just him trying to pass his agenda to lock the borders down. And now they're demanding Trump take more aggressive actions. They're saying, why hasn't Trump done more to invoke these authoritarian federal powers? There's no right answer. They call him an authoritarian weak man. There is no right answer. But Donald Trump wins because his supporters win the internet. Well, all of these people in the media are lying, and they lie all the time. Okay, let me walk that back. Many of these activists in media pretend to be journalists. Not all of them. There are good journalists. There are a lot of them. I know many of them. But there are many people in media who are lying. And then the lie travels all around in circles like a game of telephone, and then it just becomes fact, and it's not true. Trump recently called out someone in the Rose Garden for falsely quoting him, forcing him to read the real quote. It was incredible to see what Trump had actually claimed in the quote and how the media was lying about it. Fortunately for Trump, his diehard supporters run the internet. Okay, not completely, but even the New York Times knows Trump won the internet. Democrats are scrambling to take it back. In the era of big data memes and disinformation, the Democrats are trying to regain their digital edge as the president and his loyalists dictate the terms of the debate. They've lost. I mean, they can't meme. They don't know what's going on or how to use it. And you know why they can't win? If you can't recognize the faults, you will never improve yourself. It requires someone to say, hey, I did something wrong to fix it. Because if you think everything you're doing is right, you'll never fix it. Which brings me to this thread from Reddit, which I find absolutely fascinating. This is downvoted. This is hilarious. r/politics on Reddit. They've got 5.9 million subscribers, but it may as well be just a Bernie Sanders support page because they post activist websites instead of news websites. Now, they do post news websites as well. But this post was submitted. Trump won the internet. Democrats are scrambling to take it back. And what's that? It has 0 points. What does that mean? It won't appear on the subreddit because people have said it's not relevant. 36% of people who see it give it an upvote, meaning most people are rejecting the premise outright and no one will ever read the story. I gotta say, if I was a conspiracy theorist, I'd be willing to bet Republicans are going on this and only upvoting activist posts to make sure they stay in a bubble, because this is one of the stupidest things you can do. And I don't really believe it. But if you can't recognize where you're going wrong, how could you possibly win? They are being blinded. And the response to the story are fascinating. One person says, Cambridge Analytica won the internet. Trump just made a spectacle. Someone responded trying to say, come on, man, you got to recognize Trump is doing well. Well, they're not interested. This person said, meanwhile, in an alternative universe from New Zealand, what do you know about America? Seems like a clickbait article locked behind a paywall. Here's one. Those bonehats can't even hang on to a subreddit, much less win an internet. Or are we calling Vote and the Chans the internet again, Granddad? Here's one. Have you seen his live streams in the Biden Batcave? He's mercilessly killing Trump. Biden's internet strategy is lit AF. Are you kidding me? Have you even listened to the people who like Biden? The people who don't like Trump in the leftist, digital, progressive media space are freaking out about how bad Joe Biden is doing. And you know what? Like they don't want to accept it, man. Joe Rogan. Trump is going to eat Joe Biden alive. Everybody else sees it. In this clip, the Joe Rogan podcast, the most popular podcast in the world, shows clips from Joe Biden muttering incoherently. And Joe Rogan's like, dude, come on, man. I'm pretty sure Joe in the past said, I'm sorry, this man can't be president. I gotta say, I agree with them. The fact that they can't recognize where their faults are is exactly why Donald Trump is going to win. This is where internet memes come from. June 11th, 2018. In MIT's technology review, they say that the Donald subreddit, which is now somewhat defunct, that's where a majority of the memes propagate. Now, the Donald, these moderators created their own website called the Donald.win, and it's quickly rising in the Alexa ranks. Not nearly one of the biggest websites in the world, but it is growing very, very quickly, and it's essentially a clone of Reddit for Donald Trump supporters. They've separated themselves from the main body of Reddit to give themselves more freedom. They haven't stopped. They're growing. They said you can't maintain a subreddit. Are you kidding? They built their own. You want to talk about winning the internet? When Reddit shuts you down and you create your own Reddit in response, I'm sorry, that's winning the internet. And people who are on that subreddit can still move on and go and check out all of those posts. Now, the big finale. Who could possibly beat Trump? It ain't Biden. It could be Andrew Cuomo. Trump says of NY Governor Cuomo, I wouldn't mind running against Andrew. Cuomo is not running for president, and the race for the Democratic nomination is down to just two candidates, Biden and Senator Bernie Sanders, but they are so desperate. They are trying to pull him in by any means necessary. But Cuomo says no. He straight up says, I'm not going to do it. No, I know presidential politics. I was there in the White House with Clinton. I was there with Gore. No, I'm at peace with who I am and what I'm doing, Cuomo told Dowd. Well, it's not going to stop him. This guy from the New York Post says why Joe Biden doesn't dare tap Andrew Cuomo for Veep. Yes, there are people who are actually arguing maybe Cuomo could be the vice president because he's not going to win the Democratic nomination. But some people are even pointing out, no, he wouldn't dare do that. I mean, look, if Joe Biden tapped Andrew Cuomo, it would be a weird inversion because Cuomo would make a much better presidential candidate than Biden would. So why would Biden be the top name on the ticket? Nobody's going to want to vote for that. And that would be bad for Cuomo. Cuomo's doing great. His approval rating is skyrocketing, and this is giving him a real opportunity to run in the future. Adam Brewster tweeted, he's with CBS News. This is remarkable. Cuomo goes from -6 net favorability in February to plus 48 net favorability in March in the Siena poll. He gets a 71% favorability rating overall, and 87% of New Yorkers approve of the job he's doing with the coronavirus specifically. This is amazing. Take a look at this. You can see that his approval rating had been dropping since 2011. And right around the 2018, it was bouncing up and down. The coronavirus hit, and now in March, he's up to 71% favorability, 23% unfavorability. You know what's really fascinating here? It shows you how the fake news really does hurt Donald Trump, yet he's still shining through it. Donald Trump's approval rating is at 50.6% in dealing with the coronavirus, and his overall approval rating is higher than it has ever been as of the past few days. Imagine if the media wasn't blaming Trump for everything. So Andrew Cuomo comes out and says much of the exact same thing Trump did. Cuomo downplayed the threat of this early on, saying we don't need a lockdown. So did Donald Trump. They blame Trump. They ignore Cuomo. Donald Trump touts a potential treatment, saying this is really, really great. We want to use this. Cuomo comes out in his press conference saying the exact same thing. They attack Trump. They blame him. They say nothing about Cuomo. You can see how the media is absolutely holding back Donald Trump. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Trump is deserving of some of the, some of the flack he gets. He deserves it. Like the dude can be aggressive. He can be arrogant. I certainly think he is. But I know that much of what you hear from the media is just fake nonsense. And that's why they desperately want to prop up Andrew Cuomo. The reality is it won't be Cuomo. It won't be Biden. It will be the coronavirus. Vanity Fair says the virus will be on the ballot in November. The pandemic has upended the traditional campaigning model. It says upended traditional campaigning and may play a major role in voters' decisions. The question for those running in 2020, says one congressman, will be, how did you perform in the Great Crisis? It's possible that Cuomo gets drafted and he says, I don't want to run. I said no, but I'm going to do it for this country. I don't think so. I really don't see it. It would be, stranger things have happened. So maybe. And Cuomo does have a very high favorability in dealing with the coronavirus. So he's the best bet to go up against Trump. Assuming what he said is true, though, and honest, that he's not interested in running and he won't, then the only real thing that Trump is running against is the coronavirus. And as we've already seen, as of the last 7 polls, people support Donald Trump. I think he's doing well enough. And if he maintains this course, he's going to win in a landslide. Now, we do see some rather shocking developments because not the first time, but Joe Scarborough says that Trump made the right decision and that Americans are a lot safer because Trump has decided to extend the lockdown until April 30th. If Trump can get his enemies, I shouldn't say enemies, but fiercest critics to praise him, he's doing well. If Cuomo says he doesn't want to be involved, who is Trump really running against? And if no one is enthusiastic about Biden, then Trump is absolutely going to win. But you know what? It won't stop the media from at least trying. Marco Rubio tweets, China's Communist Party doesn't even have to pay for these. They get it for free. I actually can't show you what's in these tweets because YouTube would get mad at me. I'd probably get demonetized and get in trouble. Well, I'll probably be demonetized anyway, to be honest. But if I can show you the one from The Verge, it says the coronavirus is now the American virus. Yep. They would smear America and push Chinese propaganda, or at least talking points. That to me is, it's just as insane as you get. That's how much they hate the president. Yeah, well, he's going to win, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's time to accept it, because many of these Democrats who are freaking out have already accepted it. Nobody wants Biden. And the people, even his own supporters don't want him. I have no idea why any of you voted for him. Maybe they'll figure out how to get Cuomo. I doubt it. But I'll leave it there. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. Next segment will be coming up at 6 p.m. at youtube.com/TimCastNews. It's a different channel, and I will see you all there.